Tonight you are not kneeling in the mud of a medieval battlefield or choking on the fumes of a Renaissance plague cure. No, your fate is darker, dustier, and far more suffocating. You are a Victorian coal miner, swallowed by a pit in northern England before your voice has even broken. Before we strike the flint and lower your lamp into that shaft of endless night, do me one small favour. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. If you'd prefer these stories without ads, you can join the Patreon. It's linked in the description. And if you listen to these in bed, consider using a pair of wireless sleep earbuds for enhanced immersion. They're comfortable, discreet, and designed for side sleepers. I've linked my favourite pair in the description. Now, lie back, get comfortable. Let's begin. You're 8 years old, perhaps 9, though time is already a luxury that belongs to other people. Childhood has no meaning in the cottage rows near the pit head. There is only the day you're considered big enough to work and the day you're considered too weak to be of use. Your mother smooths your hair before you leave, though the gesture feels ceremonial more than practical. She hands you a little tallow lamp, its flames stuttering against the morning breeze, and reminds you to mind your step on the ladder. That is the sum total of her preparation for your new life. A kiss on the head and a warning not to slip. You clutch the lamp in both hands as though it were something alive. Its smoke curls faintly in your face as you shuffle toward the black moor of the shaft. Men pass you with their picks and lunch tins, their voices low, boots crunching, eyes ringed with coal dust. None of them look at you for long. A child in the pit is unremarkable. You are not the first, and you will not be the last. At the shaft, the cage rattles and creaks, chains groaning under the strain as it rises toward the surface. The men step in first, a solid press of bodies, sweat and leather, and iron tools clanking. Then you are nudged forward, your little frame pressed against the bars. The lamp clutched so tightly, your knuckles blanch white. The signal bell clangs, and with a jolt, the cage begins its descent. The daylight shrinks behind you, like the snuffing of a candle, and the air cools, thickens, and grows damp. The rumble of the machinery above fades into the clatter of chains, and the echo of water dripping against stone. You grip the bars, trying not to tremble, as the blackness grows absolute. Someone spits, someone coughs, and the sound carries in the narrow shaft, like a gunshot. You do not speak, you hardly breathe. By the time the cage rattles to a halt, you have lost all sense of how long you have been sinking. You only know that daylight feels like something from another life, and that you will not see it again for many hours. The cage doors creak open, and you are ushered out into a passage barely taller than a man's shoulders. The air strikes you first. It is thick and stale, smelling of damp stone, rotting timbers, and something acrid that stings the nose. The black damp, the older boys mutter, as though that word alone should mean something to you. The walls close in with a damp chill, though the bodies of the men around you radiate heat, sweat already glistening in the flicker of lamps. Every surface glimmers with moisture or coal dust, the darkness swallowing even the flames into a faint yellow haze. A cart rattles past, drawn by a pit pony, with blind pale eyes that roll dully in the lamplight. The creature looks more ghost than animal, its hide matted, its ribs showing. You instinctively reach to touch its flank, but the driver jerks the reins, and the pony lumbers away, hooves clattering against stone, chains dragging behind. That, you think, is what work looks like. Your job is explained to you in as few words as possible. You are to sit by a small wooden door in one of the passages and open it when a cart approaches, then shut it quickly behind. The door helps control the airflow, they tell you, forcing the draft down one passage and away from another, keeping the lamps burning where the men work at the face. Without boys like you, the air would stagnate, the fire damp would build, and then the mine would explode. You are, in the most technical sense, responsible for holding back death with a hinge and a latch. But no one says it so dramatically. To them, it is simply your task, a trapper boy. That is what you are now, for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, until you grow old enough to crawl at the face. The first hours pass slowly. You sit in near total darkness, the tallow lamp guttering at your side, your little wooden stool perched on damp stone. The door looms beside you, its rough planks scarred by years of use, the latch worn smooth by other boys' hands. When you open it, a faint rush of air brushes your face, carrying with it the smell of sweat, horse and coal. Then the door shuts again, and you're left in silence, save for the sound of dripping water and your own shallow breathing. From time to time, the silence is broken by the clatter of a cart, the squeal of wheels, the grunt of a pony, and the low voices of men urging it forward. Each time, you rise, pull the latch, and let them pass. Then the door closes again, and you sit back down. Hours blur into each other, and the only measure of time is the ache in your limbs, and the way your lamp's tallow gutter burns lower and lower. The noises of the mine become a language of their own. The steady rhythm of picks striking coal somewhere far off, punctuated by sudden coughs that echo like warnings. The groan of timbers as the weight of the earth presses down, sometimes splintering sharply, reminding everyone how thin the line is between tunnel and grave. Once you hear a dull thud that makes the ground shiver beneath you. No one explains it to you, but you sense the tension in the voices of the men who pass soon after, muttering about a fall, perhaps a man caught under. You do not ask questions. Children are not supposed to. You simply keep opening and closing the door. Your body adjusts slowly to the air, though never comfortably. The damp creeps into your bones, yet sweat sticks your shirt to your back. Your throat scratches with every breath, dust settling on your tongue, turning each swallow into grit. The lamp gives off a thin smoke that coils in your nostrils, leaving the taste of rancid fat. You dream of water, but the tin you carry is lukewarm and metallic, doing little to ease your thirst. Once, one of the older boys offers you a scrap of bread, but it is black at the edges where coal dust has pressed into it. You eat it anyway, because hunger trumps disgust. That, too, is part of your education. At one point, you nearly drift asleep, the monotony dragging your eyelids down, till a foreman passes and snaps at you to mind the door. His words are not cruel so much as dismissive, the way one might scold a dog. Your small frame, your inexperience, your weariness, none of it matters. The mine has no patience for weakness, even in children. You sit up straighter, blinking against the dark, and fix your eyes on the faint glow of your lamp. The hours crawl on. By the end of the shift, you no longer feel the same boy who clutched his lamp in terror that morning. Your clothes are soaked with sweat, your skin streaked black, your hair stiff with coal dust. You cough for the first time, a sharp, shallow bark that leaves your throat raw. No one notices. Around you, men hack and wheeze with the same rhythm as they swing picks. The sound is so constant, it forms part of the atmosphere. You learn quickly that coughing is not remarkable here, only silence is. When at last you're called back to the shaft, you shuffle with the others toward the cage. The lamplight blurs in your eyes and your legs feel weak from sitting so long. The ride upward rattles your bones, the air growing fresher with every foot, until suddenly there is daylight again. It blinds you, searing after 12 hours in gloom. You stumble out onto the pithead yard, eyes watering, lungs straining against the new rush of air. Your face is streaked black and grey, your nails rimmed with coal, your cough still tickling in your chest. Your mother waits with a cloth to wipe you down, but the black does not come off so easily. Already, coal has settled in the folds of your skin, in the lining of your lungs. You have begun your life's work, and the pit has left its first mark. The years pass, and with them any trace of boyhood softness is ground away. You are a teenager, and taller now, your limbs longer and harder, your shoulders carrying the weight that once seemed unimaginable when you first stepped into the shaft as a child. But your world has not changed. Daylight remains a stranger. The mine has claimed you, and like the other boys who survive long enough, you graduate from sitting in the dark to moving in it. No longer a trapper boy, you're set to haul the coal tubs, squat wooden carts laden with rock that groan against their iron wheels. You push and drag them through the narrow roadways, your back bent double, knees and elbows scraping against rough stone. It is a promotion, in name only. The door was solitude, monotony, and silence. The tub is weight, strain, and noise. But still you remain underground, and still you breathe the same dust. The tubs are heavier than you can truly manage, though you learn to summon strength from necessity. A rope strap is looped over your shoulders, cutting into your collarbones, while your hands brace against the back of the cart as you strain forward. Your boots slip on the damp rock, water seeping through holes until your toes are raw, but you keep moving. The men at the coal face are impatient, their picks clattering steadily, their voices rough with curses if the tubs do not arrive in time. You learn quickly that there is no mercy in the rhythm of the pit. The coal must move, whether your body breaks or not. In those low passages where even crawling is too much, you wriggle on your belly like a worm, pulling at the tub with your hands, your face inches from the floor, your lamp flickering against the damp rock, your shirt soaks with sweat, your skin rubbed raw, but you carry on. Every boy does. When the tubs are filled, you haul them back, the wood creaking under the load, the iron rims screeching against stone. Sometimes you pass the ponies again, those pale-eyed creatures who spend their entire lives in darkness. Their hooves splash through puddles, their heads bowed under yokes, their breath steaming faintly in the lamplight. They are treated little better than you, fed sparingly, whipped if they falter, forgotten when they die. You do not envy them, though you recognise the likeness. Both boy and beast are fuel for the mine, to be used until broken. When you think of freedom, you think of daylight, though you glimpse it so rarely that it has become a kind of myth. Meals underground are brief and bitter. You sit on the damp stone with the others, your bread wrapped in a rag that cannot keep the coal from seeping in. By the time you eat, the crust is blackened and gritty, the butter, if you're lucky enough to have it, streaked with dust. You chew anyway, spitting out the worst of the grit, swallowing the rest. Your tea is cold, tasting of iron, and you drink it quickly before the foreman barks the men back to the face. Conversation during these meals is sparse, though sometimes the older men trade stories in low tones. They speak of accidents, of men caught under falls, of sudden blasts when the fire damp ignites and turns a passage into a furnace. You listen with wide eyes, understanding that each tale is half warning, half inevitability. These are not distant rumours, they are tomorrow's possibilities. You see your first roof fall when you're 14. The crack of splintering timber echoes down the passage, followed by a rush of dust that chokes the air and blinds the lamps. The men run toward the noise, some shouting, some silent, but all with the same grim urgency. When the cloud clears, you see the jagged rock piled where moments before there had been space to breathe. A man lies under it, his leg twisted, blood pooling black in the lamplight. He moans, then does not. The others dig frantically with picks and bare hands, dragging him free, though it is clear he is already gone. They lay him aside, covering his face with a rag, and then return to their tools. There is no pause, no mourning. The coal does not wait. You stand frozen, your chest heaving, until one of the men curses at you to fetch another tub. So you do. Explosions are rarer, but their terror lingers long after the sound has faded. One day, deep in the workings, a faint hiss builds into a roar as the fire damp catches a stray spark. The blast rattles the walls, the heat surges through the tunnels, and the lamps are snuffed out in an instant. You crouch on the ground, ears ringing, lungs burning with smoke. Around you men shout. though their voices sound muffled, as if carried from another world. When the air clears enough for the lamps to be relit, you see that 2 men are gone, swallowed by fire and darkness. Their absence is noted in murmurs, then forgotten in the rhythm of the picks. Work resumes, as it always must. You learn from that day that the mine is a living thing, unpredictable, hostile, and utterly indifferent. It takes what it wishes and gives nothing back. Your own body grows to fit this world, though never comfortably. Your back is permanently bent, your muscles hardened by constant strain, your skin marred by cuts and burns. The dust clings to you so thoroughly that even after scrubbing at the tin basin at home, your paws remain blackened, your fingernails rimmed with coal. Your mother shakes her head when she scrubs your shirts. Though she does not complain, the black is as much a part of her life as yours. At night, you cough into your blanket, the sound muffled so as not to wake your younger siblings. It is a dry, rasping cough at first, the sort that seems little more than irritation, but it lingers, and each morning you feel a heaviness in your chest that never fully lifts. No one remarks upon it. Every child of the pit coughs. It is as ordinary as hunger. There are moments, scattered and fleeting, when you laugh. In the darkness, a boy tells a crude joke, or an older man sings a snatch of a ballad in a rough, tuneless voice. The sound carries strangely in the tunnels, bouncing off stone and timber, echoing into silence. For a moment, you almost forget the weight above you, the dust in your lungs, the ache in your bones. But the laughter never lasts. A foreman's glare silences it, or another fall reminds you that joy has no place underground. You learn to treasure those brief flashes, as one treasures a candle in a storm, not because it banishes the dark, but because it shows how complete the dark is. When you emerge from the pit at the end of the day, your face streaked with sweat and coal, your eyes stinging from the lamplight, you blink against the pale sky as though it was something foreign. The daylight feels weak compared to the constant press of blackness you leave behind. You swallow your supper in silence, bread and broth filling your stomach without taste, and then collapse onto the straw mattress, coughing into the night. No one asks if you are well. No one suggests you rest. A cough is not illness here. It is the sound of life continuing, the rhythm of lungs adapting to a world they were never meant to endure. And so you sleep, chest rattling faintly, while the pit waits for you to return. Your wages are no longer pocket money to ease the household burden. They are survival itself. The table at home depends on what you bring back from the pay office, your coins scattered into your mother's worn handkerchief, as though they were treasure, rather than the price of your lungs. Your father is gone, claimed by the pit before his time, crushed under a fall or worn out by dust or both, depending on which version of the story you believe. An older brother has already followed him down the same black road. That leaves you, scarcely into manhood, yet already bowed beneath the responsibility of keeping the family afloat. The mind does not acknowledge the weight it places upon your shoulders. It merely continues to grind, indifferent to how many sons and fathers it consumes. Each week after the long hours in the dark, you queue outside the pay office, shoulders stooped, boots slick with black mud, waiting for the clerk to call your name. The coins drop onto the counter, their metallic clink sounding momentarily satisfying until you notice the deductions scrawled beside your total. Lamp oil, docked. Tools, docked. Rent for the company cottage, docked. You find that the sum you collect is always less than what you imagined while hewing coal in the sweat and black damp. It is a trick of arithmetic you will never quite solve. How the harder you work, the less seems to remain. Yet you take what is offered, tip it into your pocket, and walk home with the weight of those coins already spent. At the cottage, your mother tips the money onto the table. She spreads the coins carefully, her fingers moving with practiced precision, sorting what must be paid, what may be spent, and what must be stretched until next week. Bread, oats, perhaps a little meat, if luck or generosity allows, candle stubs, soap, the barest scraps of comfort. She counts in silence, her face lined deeper each year, while your younger siblings stare at the coins as though they were gold sovereigns rather than the dull coppers they are. You feel the sting of failure, though you know you have given every ounce of your body to earn them. Still, you never have quite enough. The company sees to that. It is said that Victorian progress is measured by the number of chimneys rising into the sky, by the trains thundering across the countryside, by the glowing lamps that banish the dark from city streets. You know the truth of that progress, for you have clawed it out of the earth with bleeding hands. Each bar of iron, each ton of coal, each new marvel of industry has passed first through the lungs of men like you. And yet, as the mine owner builds a new wing on his mansion, all high windows and polished banisters, your cottage sags further into the mud, its roof patched with tar, its floorboards warped with damp. He speaks of prosperity. You live among mildew. He boasts of empire. You cough into a rag by the fire. It is a curious kind of progress that seems to march only in one direction, leaving the miners behind in their own soot. Sometimes after wages are counted, you're sent to the company store. The prices are always higher than the market, though the market is far enough away to make the journey impractical. So you hand over your coins at the same place you earned them, receiving back flour that tastes faintly of grit, candles that burn too quickly, boots that blister your feet before they give way at the seams. The company keeps you hungry, tired, and indebted, and it calls this arrangement order. You may grumble quietly with the others, trading jokes about how the owner must have discovered a seam of gold under the office floor, but there is little laughter in the sound. The humour is brittle, a way of biting your tongue until it bleeds rather than screaming into the dark. The cottage is full at night, though never warm enough. Your siblings sleep crowded together on straw, your mother bending her weary back over mending by the hearth. You eat quickly, the bread tough, the broth thin, and then you collapse onto your own straw mattress, boots still by your side, ready for another day. The cough follows you into sleep, breaking your rest, rattling the thin walls, though no one complains. Every cottage is full of the same hacking chorus, a lullaby of the pit echoing down every narrow lane. If a stranger were to visit, they might think the whole village stricken with plague. But this is not plague, it is permanence. Occasionally, you allow yourself to stand at the edge of the fields and look toward the mine owner's estate. Its lawns are manicured, its hedges trimmed, its windows gleaming. You imagine the warmth inside. Velvet curtains, roast beef, servants carrying trays. Perhaps he coughs too, though if he does, it will be into silk handkerchiefs, scented with lavender, rather than into rags stiff with black phlegm. They say he is a man of vision, a benefactor, a pillar of progress. You wonder if he has ever once descended into the pit to see the cost of his fortune. Somehow you doubt it. His boots are too polished to bear the mud. What little leisure you have is usually spent in the public house, a low smoky building where men gather to drown the dust in their throats with beer. The pint glass is a kind of medicine, if not in the sense doctors would endorse. It does not cure the cough, but it dulls the rasp for an hour or two, enough to let a man forget. Jokes circulate more freely here than anywhere else, though always edged with bitterness. Someone will remark that at least the cough syrup in the apothecary contains a dash of opium and alcohol, so it soothes the throat even if it does nothing for the lungs. Another will add that the real benefit is to the wives who get a night of quieter sleep once their husbands are too drunk to wheeze. You laugh because everyone else does, because the alternative is silence, and silence is heavier than coal. Your own body has grown broad and strong, though at a cost. The muscles in your back ache constantly. Your hands are calloused, your knees stiff from crawling through low seams. You eat enough to keep moving, drink enough to keep working, and sleep enough to rise again, but never more. When you catch sight of yourself in a warped bit of glass, you hardly recognise the boy who first clutched a tallow lamp. That boy's eyes were wide, his hands small. Yours are heavy now, your face lined with soot and fatigue, your expression dulled by repetition. Time has not so much passed as pressed itself into you, the weight of the earth carved into your very shape. And yet, despite the exhaustion, there is no question of choice. Each morning before dawn, you pull on your boots, wrap a scarf against the chill, and take up your tin of tea. Your mother nods as you leave, her face drawn in lamplight, her hands already busy with mending. The village stirs around you, other men and boys moving toward the pit head in a weary procession. The whistle has not yet sounded, but you know it will soon, its shrill note carrying across the valley, summoning you all like cattle to the same dark service. The cough rasps in your chest, unnoticed, unremarkable. You walk on, the tin clinking faintly, at your side, back to the black mouth that waits to swallow you again. Your 20s arrive without ceremony, without gifts, without pause. You are a man now, not by choice, but by the demands of the pit. No longer hauling tubs for others or waiting by the trapdoors. You have been promoted to the rank of hewer, one of the men at the face. It is, they tell you, the proper work of a miner, tearing the coal straight from the seam, stripping to the waist as though your body alone were the machine the company requires. The tools are simple, pick, shovel, wedge, but the labour is relentless, performed in conditions no machine could tolerate and no animal would willingly endure. The seam is narrow, the air hot and foul, the rock pressing close above. You crawl into position and swing the pick with both arms. Every strike sending shudders up your shoulders and down your spine, each fragment of coal prized loose clattering into the waiting tubs. The work is as steady as a clock, though it tells time not in hours but in layers of dust filling your lungs. Sweat pours freely in the low, stifling air. It soaks into your trousers, runs down your bare torso, streaking through the black dust until your skin is mottled grey. The heat underground clings to you even in winter, so you strip down to the waist like the other men, your body glistening in the lamplight, shining black as though carved from the same coal you hack. The damp stone seeps into your knees and elbows, joints stiffened by constant contact with the cold ground, while above, drops of water fall steadily, sometimes spattering on your bare shoulders, sometimes sizzling faintly when they strike a lamp. The air feels heavy, as if every breath must be fought for, dragged in through lungs that resist. The black damp lurks invisibly, thickening the passages until the lamps flicker and sputter, the faint flame a warning that life itself can be extinguished without notice. You learn to pace yourself, to find a rhythm between swinging the pick and resting your breath, though resting never lasts long. The foreman prowls with his lamp, his eyes sharp for idleness, his tally chalked on slates that record every cart you fill. Wages are tied not to effort, but to output, and so each pause is stolen from your own purse. You strike faster, harder, though your shoulders scream and your throat rasps, because hunger bites sharper than pain. The company knows this, and it presses you all the harder. A seam once thought too narrow, too steep, too dangerous to work becomes suddenly profitable, and you are the one sent into it. Belly pressed against rock, swinging in angles that twist your muscles into knots. When you emerge covered in dust, bleeding from scrapes, you are expected to be grateful for the employment. There is a kind of fellowship in this suffering, though it is not the gentle sort spoken of in sermons. Among the hewers, camaraderie comes in muttered curses, in shared jokes told over the clatter of picks, in the brief exchange of a song hummed under the breath to pass the endless hours. Sometimes one man begins a line, and others pick it up, their voices echoing oddly in the narrow space until it sounds like the mine itself is singing. The words are often coarse, sometimes melancholy, but always familiar, binding you together in sound as much as in sweat. There are days when laughter rings out, sharp and surprising, sparked by a tale told too bluntly or a jab made at the foreman's expense. The laughter is short-lived but real, a momentary defiance against the stone pressing overhead. Accidents silence all of that. When the timbers groan too loudly and a section of roof gives way, the sound it makes is something you never forget. The split of wood, the rush of falling stone, the muffled cries of whoever was unlucky enough to be beneath. In those moments, tools are dropped and men rush forward, digging with frantic urgency, hands clawing at rock as though speed might reverse fate. Sometimes a man is pulled free, groaning, bleeding, broken but alive. Other times, what they drag out is limp, eyes wide, skin pale beneath the layer of dust. A rag is thrown over his face, and work resumes. There is no funeral at the coalface, no pause for mourning. Silence lingers for an hour or so, the men moving more stiffly, their jokes subdued, their songs absent. Then, because they must, they return to rhythm, and the sound of picks begins again. Death is an interruption here, not an ending. Your body hardens, your muscles bulge, your skin thickens into callus, but inside you feel the weight of every hour. You measure your days not by the calendar, but by the number of tubs filled, by the ache that grows in your shoulders, by the dust that lines your throat. When you return home, you collapse into the chair by the fire, too weary to speak. Your wife places food before you, ladling broth into a bowl, her own eyes hollow from sleepless nights with the baby. The little one fusses in a cradle patched together from rough wood, coughing faintly in imitation of you, though everyone insists it is only a passing cold. Another child may be on the way. There is always another mouth to feed, always another small body pressed into the narrow bed. The cottage feels crowded, the air stale, but it is yours, given on condition that you keep working the pit. You eat automatically, chewing the bread though it tastes only faintly of anything but coal. The broth scalds your tongue, but you barely notice. Hunger trumps every other sense. Your mother lives nearby still, in another tied cottage further along the row. She is widowed, dependent now on what charity her neighbours can spare, on what coins you can occasionally set aside. You visit when you can, though you rarely linger long. The silence there is heavy, her rooms half empty, the walls damp and sagging. Once she cared for you when you stumbled home exhausted. Now she looks at you with tired eyes and tells you not to waste time on her, that your wife and children must come first. You nod, though the guilt lingers, weighing as heavily as the coal on your back. She coughs too, of course, everyone does. Yet you rise the next day and return, because there is no other path. Outside the pit, you are a poor man, with no trade but this, no skills but strength. Inside, you are a cog in the machine, necessary only so long as your arms can swing a pick and your lungs can drag air through the dust. It is not choice, but compulsion, and you accept it with the resignation of one who has never been offered anything else. If the company wishes more coal, you provide it. If the seam grows dangerous, you risk it. If a comrade is lost, you step over the place where he fell and continue swinging. That is what manhood in the pit looks like. Not pride, not dignity, but endurance. In rare moments of reprieve, when the tubs are filled and the foreman's glare is elsewhere, you and the others speak quietly. Someone might tell of his child's first steps, another of a daughter's illness, another of nothing at all, merely enjoying the sound of a human voice that is not an order. You discover that humour thrives in the darkest places, and that the worse the conditions, the sharper the jokes. A man will cough until he spits black phlegm onto the ground, then quip that at least he no longer needs ink for his letters. Another will point at the latest poster boasting of progress in industry, and remark that the only progress he's seen is the speed at which his hair is falling out. The laughter is rough, cracked by coughing, but it binds you in ways words cannot. The songs are another kind of medicine, coarse ballads, mournful hymns, half-forgotten folk tunes carried on voices that echo in the tunnels. A chorus swells, falters, rises again, and for a moment the picks strike in time with the rhythm, as though the mine itself were keeping the beat. The words do not matter so much as the act of singing, of asserting sound against silence, of proving that you are more than muscle and dust. You are men, alive, defiant, if only for the length of a verse. Then the song fades, the picks resume their uneven clatter, and the dark swallows the sound whole. When the shift finally ends, you climb back to the surface with limbs trembling from exhaustion, your body glistening with sweat that cools too quickly in the night air. The sky looks pale, distant, and untrustworthy after so many hours beneath the earth. You walk to the pub with the others, boots heavy, voices low, shoulders slumped. Inside, the air is thick with smoke and the bitter scent of spilled ale. You order a pint of black beer, lifting it with hands still streaked with coal dust. The liquid burns faintly as it slides down your throat, loosening the rasp for a brief, welcome moment. The others do the same, swallowing greedily, sighing with something close to relief. They call it flushing the dust from the throat, though you know better. The beer does not wash the black from your lungs. It only dulls the edge, so you can face another day at the face. You drink anyway, because there is no other cure, and because for an hour or two the cough sounds less like your own death sentence and more like a background noise you can pretend not to hear. The nights begin to shift before the days do. At first it is nothing more than a tickle, an irritation at the back of your throat that wakes you from what should be dreamless exhaustion. You roll over in the narrow bed, dragging the thin blanket closer to your chin, hoping it will pass quickly. But it does not. The tickle grows into a rasp, the rasp into a fit, and suddenly your chest convulses with a cough that rattles your ribs and jerks your body upright. You clutch your chest and press your face into the rag your wife thrusts into your hands, so you do not spit black phlegm onto the bedding. The baby stirs in the cradle, whimpering at the noise, and your wife sighs, her face pale in the glow of the dying fire. She says nothing. She's grown used to being woken in this way. You settle back, throat raw, body aching, eyes fixed on the dark rafters above, wondering why your breath feels shorter now, why your sleep no longer restores you. During the day, you can almost forget it. The pit is loud enough, the work demanding enough, that the cough blends with the general chorus of hacking and throat clearing that fills the seams. You swing your pick, pause to catch a breath, cough once or twice, then swing again. No one notices, or if they do not care. Every man coughs. It is as natural as spitting into the dirt, as wiping sweat from your brow. You tell yourself it is nothing, just the air, just the dust, just part of the work. The lie is easy enough to believe while your arms are strong and the tubs still fill beneath your labour. It is at night, in the silence of the cottage, when the cough returns and refuses to let you rest, that you begin to feel the weight of it. Your wife grows weary of it before you do. Not weary of you, though sometimes her sharp glance in the half-light suggests otherwise, but weary of the noise, the endless hacking that tears through her rest, as well as yours. She tries to muffle it, tucking the children's blankets tighter, pressing a cloth to your lips, shushing you, as though you could control the convulsions. You apologise, though there is nothing you can do. She mutters that at least the rats must keep their distance, driven off by the racket, and though she says it with a hint of humour, you can hear the exhaustion beneath her words. She is young still, too young to be a nursemaid to a man who sounds as though his chest is already failing him, but she bears it because she must. There is no other choice. Eventually, She insists on calling the doctor. You would not have done so yourself. Doctors cost money, and money is thin enough already when every shilling must stretch to feed children, pay for coal, mend boots, and patch clothes. But after a night when you cough until you spit blood into the rag, she refuses to be silent. The doctor arrives in the afternoon, his boots polished, his coat unmarked by work, his little leather bag clasped tightly in his hand. He looks out of place in the cottage, his clean face sharp against the soot-stained walls, his manner brisk and detached. He asks a few questions, listens briefly as you wheeze and clear your throat, then presses the cold stethoscope to your chest. His brow furrows only slightly before smoothing again, as though he has seen it all before, which of course he has. Dust on the lungs, he says with a shrug, as if naming it were cure enough. The words carry no weight, no comfort, only a kind of finality that you cannot quite grasp. He advises rest, though both you and he know that such advice is nonsense. If you rest, you do not eat. If you do not eat, your children go hungry. Rest is a privilege for those who do not crawl on their bellies through black seams. Seeing the look on your wife's face, he softens his tone enough to recommend a syrup available at the apothecary, guaranteed to ease the cough and soothe the throat. You ask if it will cure you, and he says nothing at all, only snaps his bag shut and nods curtly before departing. The visit costs more than the advice is worth, but you pay anyway, because what else can you do? The syrup comes in a small glass bottle with a bright, cheerful label that promises relief from cough, catarrh, and consumption. Inside is a thick liquid, sweet on the tongue, with a taste of licorice masking the sharper flavours beneath. Laudanum, alcohol, chloroform. No one really knows what combination is used, but everyone agrees it dulls the throat, quiets the cough, and makes the nights more bearable. You take a spoonful before bed, and the burning warmth spreads down your throat and into your chest, leaving behind a numbness that feels almost pleasant. You lie back, your body heavy, your mind dulled, and for a few hours you sleep more deeply than you have in weeks. Your wife remarks the next morning that you are far more tolerable under the influence of syrup, since at least the cottage did not shake with your wheezing. You laugh, though the sound quickly dissolves into another fit, proving the point. Among the men, the topic of medicine becomes a joke in itself. At the pub, over pints of black beer, you compare notes on which bottles contain the strongest dose of alcohol, which syrups taste least like poison, which mixtures are most effective at silencing the cough long enough for a man's wife to sleep. One fellow insists that his wife buys the syrup more for herself than for him, since it gives her a blessed night of quiet. Another claims the syrup is simply whiskey with a label, though he admits it works well enough either way. The laughter that follows is dry, cracked, punctuated by fits of hacking, but it is laughter all the same. Better to joke about medicine than to speak of what lies beneath the cough. Despite the syrup, the tightness in your chest lingers. It follows you into the pit, makes each swing of the pick heavier, each load of coal more difficult. You pause more often now, leaning on your tool, spitting into the black mud, wiping your mouth with the back of your hand before continuing. The foreman watches but says little. Men are scarce, and you still produce enough to make you worth keeping, though your pace has slowed. You tell yourself you will recover, that it is only a passing weakness, that soon you will be as strong as before. But the truth gnaws at you in the quiet moments, when you feel the burn behind your ribs, the weight pressing on your chest, the wheeze that never quite leaves your breath. At home, the children notice too. Your eldest clambers onto your lap, asking why your chest rattles like a cart on cobbles. You try to laugh, though the sound comes out rough, and tell him it is nothing. He coughs in imitation the way children do, and your wife hooshes him sharply. Her eyes flashing with fear, she tries to hide. The baby cries at the noise, and you hand the rag back to your wife, ashamed of how it is always damp now, always stained, You begin to dread the nights, not for the cough itself, but for the way it steals peace from those around you. Still, you rise the next morning as you always do. You pull on your boots, fill your tin with tea, and step out into the cold air with the others, the pit head looming ahead. Your chest is tight, your throat raw, your body weary from a night of broken sleep. But wages do not pause for coughing, and the mind does not care if you spit blood into your rag. You walk on, lamp swinging faintly at your side, toward the black mouth that waits to swallow you once more. The cough lingers, no longer a nightly nuisance, but a constant undertone to your days, as familiar as the scrape of your boots on stone, or the rattle of a cart along the rails. It catches you at odd moments, while stooping to lace your boots in the morning, while taking the first swallow of tea from your tin, while lifting your child onto your lap. At first you try to smother it, pressing a rag to your mouth so the sound is muffled, swallowing hard to keep it at bay. But the body has its own intentions, and the cough forces its way out, leaving your chest raw and your eyes watering. In the pit, surrounded by men who wheeze and hack as frequently as they swing their picks, you might almost believe it is normal. Yet there is something in its persistence, in the way it digs deeper into your chest each week, that unsettles you, even as you try to convince yourself otherwise. It is not only the sound, but what comes with it. The spit you cough into the rag or onto the stone has darkened. No longer the pale froth of irritation, but streaked now with black, thick, and gritty between your teeth. You wipe it away quickly, hiding the rag from your wife so she does not see, spitting into corners of the seam where the muck is already blackened with soot. You do not want the foreman to notice either, because sick men are liabilities, and liabilities have a way of finding themselves dismissed. You keep your head low, your lamp steady, your pick moving. When the tightness in your chest becomes unbearable, you pause, turning your head as though adjusting your grip, coughing discreetly into the crook of your arm before resuming the rhythm. The pretense fools no one, but in the pit silence is its own form of courtesy. You do not mention another man's weakness because your own is never far away. The dust is everywhere now, not only in your lungs, but in every part of your life. It sits on your skin in a fine layer that no amount of scrubbing can fully remove, turning the water in your basin black, settling again before your flesh has dried. It cakes under your fingernails, grits between your teeth, and clings to your hair until it shines dull and lifeless in the lamplight. You taste it in your food no matter how carefully your wife covers it, the bread flecked with black grains that crunch between your teeth, the broth carrying a faint bitterness no herbs can disguise. Even the tea, boiled until strong enough to melt iron, tastes of soot. Your children have grown used to this as well. Their lips are smudged with it, their hands blackened before midday, their lungs already catching small coughs that mimic yours. They play in the dust. They eat in the dust. They sleep in the dust, and you cannot help but feel that you have carried the pit home with you, filling the cottage with its darkness until it has become impossible to tell where the work ends and life begins. At night, when sleep does finally claim you, the dust pursues you still. In your dreams, you find yourself crawling through seams so narrow that the walls press into your chest, filling your mouth with grit until you choke awake. You dream of coughing in the dark, the sound echoing endlessly, reverberating off stone until it becomes indistinguishable from the groaning timbers that hold back the roof. You wake drenched in sweat, throat raw, mouth parched, and for a moment you cannot tell if the dream has ended or if you're still underground. Your wife mutters in her sleep beside you, turning over, pulling the blanket tighter, used to these disturbances by now. The baby coughs once in the cradle, a sound so faint it might have been missed, if not for the way your ears have grown tuned to every echo of illness. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling, the dust thick in your throat, certain that even in dreams you cannot escape it. The village itself seems constructed from coal dust. The cottages sag beneath its weight, their walls streaked black, their windows rimmed with soot. Washing strung across the lanes turns grey before it has dried, the garments stiff with particles that the wind never carries away. Even the fields beyond bear a dark tinge, the soil stained, the plants coated, as though the earth itself has submitted to the mind's dominion. You feel it in your children's hands when they climb onto your lap, smearing black marks onto your shirt, in your wife's hair when she bends to stoke the fire, her curls dulled by the ash that drifts invisibly through every crack. You live not only with coal, but in it, your entire world reduced to its shadow. Progress, they call it, though the only progress you feel is the steady erosion of your breath. Your wife notices more than she says. She watches you eat in silence, your hand occasionally pausing to press against your chest. She folds your shirts, shaking the coal dust loose in the yard, her lips pressed thin, though she knows it will cling again as soon as you return. She says little, because there is nothing to say, but her eyes linger when you turn away from the table, coughing into your rag. The children notice too, though they speak only in mimicry. They copy your wheeze in play, laugh at the sound, then fall into their own little coughs that are not yet serious but make your heart tighten nonetheless. You tell them to hush, to save their breath, though you cannot quite hide the fear in your voice. You know that the dust has already touched them, as it has touched everyone in the village, and that your fate may not be yours alone. The mind continues without sympathy. Your lungs may falter, your chest may burn, your strength may wane, but the seam stretches on, black and unyielding, indifferent to the limits of flesh. The foreman does not care that you cough harder now, that your breath comes ragged and shallow. His tally board records only the tubs filled, the carts sent, the weight hauled to the surface. The company's books count tonnage, not rib cages. The whistles still sound at dawn, the cage still drops, and you still find yourself in the dark with the others, pick in hand, though each swing feels heavier, each pause longer, each breath less sufficient than the one before. The mind does not stop, and so you do not either. You labour through the pain because there is no alternative. Hunger waits as faithfully as death, and you know which you would prefer to meet first, but the body betrays you more with each passing day. Your muscles ache with an exhaustion that no night's sleep seems to cure. Your shoulders throb with the strain of carrying both coal and illness, and your arms tremble when they should remain steady. Where once you could swing for hours, with only brief pauses, now you must rest more often, leaning against the rock, coughing into the rag you carry in your pocket. The black spit stains it constantly, the cloth stiff with dried mucus, but you keep it hidden. To show it openly would invite trouble. You force yourself back into rhythm, back into the endless clatter of picks, but the rhythm breaks more often now, fractured by the sound of your lungs refusing their duty. The others notice, though they do not speak of it directly. Some offer you silent pity, stepping past you without remark when you pause, pretending not to see the tremor in your hands. Others mock you quietly, calling you slow, half dead already, a weak link in the chain. The words sting, though you know they are spoken more from fear than cruelty. No man wants to be reminded of what lies ahead, of what the dust does when it settles too deeply. Your weakness is a mirror they would rather not look into, so they laugh at you instead. You do not answer, because you know they're right. You are weaker, slower, and the pit has no place for weakness. Accidents follow more readily when your body no longer obeys. A tub slips from your grip, crashing into a wall and nearly overturning, the pony startled into a lathered frenzy before a driver reins it back. A timber creaks above, and you're too slow to move, barely dodging as a chunk of stone breaks loose, grazing your shoulder instead of crushing your skull. Tools slip from your fingers, your reflexes dulled by the constant, haze of exhaustion. Where once you could leap aside, now you stumble, gasping for breath, vision blurred with sweat. You survive each incident narrowly, though you feel your luck thinning, threadbare as the cuffs of your shirt. Each scrape, each near miss reminds you how little margin remains between survival and burial. Meanwhile, the company trumpets progress. Notices appear boasting of record production, of coal shipments larger than ever before, of profits swelling, of investors smiling in distant cities where the air is clean. They call it industry's golden age, the triumph of man's mastery over nature. You laugh bitterly at the word man's, because the triumph is not yours. For you, the only mastery is of pain, of hunger, of endurance. More coal leaves the mine each year, but less leaves your body. You produce less with each month, even as the demand grows greater. Progress is measured in ledgers and timetables, not in the number of men limping home at night with their lungs on fire. It is the cruelest of arithmetic. The more progress there is, the less of you remains. Your wife does not need to be told. She hears it in your breathing, sees it in the way you collapse into the chair by the fire without a word, unable to lift your children onto your knee as you once did. She presses food into your hands, urging you to eat, though you barely taste it, the coal dust dulling everything. She mends your shirts, coughs softly herself, and says nothing. Her silence weighs heavier than her words ever could. The children, too, notice in their own way, tugging at your arm less, staring with wide eyes when you cough until your body shakes. You try to smile for them, though the expression cracks beneath the weight of your ribs. At the pub, you still drink your pint of black beer, though the burn down your throat no longer feels like relief. It merely quiets the ache for an hour, allows you to sit among the others and pretend to belong. The jokes are still told, though you laugh more weakly now, the sound thin, broken by wheezing. The men do not call attention to it, because they know soon enough it will be their turn. You watch them, each one coughing into his sleeve, each one hiding a rag in his pocket, each one at a different stage of the same journey. It is as if you're all walking down a tunnel that grows narrower with each step, knowing there is no turning back, no side passage, only the inevitable collapse ahead. The dust has become part of you in ways you cannot ignore. It lies on your skin even when you wash, embedded in the creases of your hands, beneath your nails, at the corners of your eyes. You feel it grind between your teeth when you chew, hear it in your chest when you try to breathe deeply. You spit black every morning, every night, every time you pause at the coalface. It stains your rags, your shirt, the ground where you stand. You try to swallow it down, to keep it hidden, but the effort is futile. The mine has entered you, and you cannot expel it. You are no longer just a miner. You are part of the seam, a fragment of coal walking upright, breaking apart piece by piece. There are days when you swear the dust follows you, even into your dreams. You lie down exhausted, lungs rattling, and drift into uneasy sleep, only to find yourself still underground, crawling through passages too narrow for air coughing until your chest bursts, spitting black until the earth swallows you. You wake with a start, sweat soaking your shirt, the rag damp beside you. Your wife stirs, turns over, and sighs. The baby coughs once in its sleep. You lie awake, staring at the dark ceiling, listening to the chorus of coughing from neighbouring cottages, drifting through the night air. It is the lullaby of the village, 100 lungs wheezing in unison, a song of progress no one will remember. In the pit, you fight to hide your weakness, but the truth betrays itself. Your pauses grow longer, your breath shorter, your strength less reliable. The foreman notices, eventually, his sharp eyes narrowing as he tallies your tubs. He mutters about idlers, about men who cannot pull their weight, about the company's losses. You say nothing, because nothing you could say would matter. You force yourself back to the seam, pick in hand, body trembling. You tell yourself you will push harder, that you will not be cast aside, that you will not be the one left behind. But your lungs disagree. They rasp, they burn, they refuse to draw in enough air. You cough into the rag until it grows slick, then shove it back into your pocket and strike again, your arms moving even as your chest falters. It happens one afternoon, deep in the workings, when the heat is unbearable and the dust hangs thick enough to choke the lamps. You swing once, twice, then drop to your knees, gasping, your vision narrowing, the sound of picks around you distant and muffled. You try to rise, but your legs refuse, your chest tightening as though a band of iron has been drawn around it. The cough seizes you, racking your body until you fall sideways, sprawled on the damp stone. Voices shout, hands grab, and you're dragged back along the passage, your body jolting with every bump of the cart rails. The air above feels cleaner, cooler, though it does little to ease the fire in your chest. You lie on the ground, staring up at the grey sky, coughing until your ribs feel as though they will crack. The others stand over you in silence, waiting for you to recover enough to move. Your wife insists on another visit to the doctor. After the collapse underground, after the coughing fits that leave you bent double with a rag pressed to your mouth, after the nights when you choke so violently she fears you will stop breathing entirely. She refuses to let it pass as something ordinary. You resist at first, not from courage, but from shame and from the knowledge of what the visit will cost. The last consultation drained coins you could scarcely spare, and the syrup it purchased dulled your throat without curing it. Still, your wife is firm. She has watched you stagger home too many evenings, watched you spit black phlegm into the fire, watched your children stare at you in silence when the coughing seizes you. She will not take your excuses any longer. When she tells you that she has already sent word, you do not argue. The doctor arrives in the late afternoon, his appearance as incongruous as ever in the soot-stained cottage. His coat is immaculate, his boots unscuffed, his spectacles polished to a shine. He sets his leather bag on the table as though it were a holy object and regards you with that same detached impatience you remember from before. Your wife hovers anxiously at his shoulder, wringing her hands in her apron, while your children peer from the corner with wide, uncertain eyes. You sit stiffly on the chair by the fire, your chest rattling with each shallow breath, your rag damp in your lap. The doctor asks you to breathe deeply, and you try, dragging air into lungs that refuse to expand. The effort ends in a fit that doubles you over, hacking until black mucus stains the cloth again. The children flinch at the sight. Your wife presses her lips together, and the doctor only sighs as though you have inconvenienced him with your display. He listens with his stethoscope, the cold metal pressed to your back and chest, his brow furrowing more this time than last. When he straightens, he does not meet your eyes at once. Instead, he clears his throat and explains in that same clipped professional tone that the problem is not passing irritation or common catarrh. It is coal workers' pneumoconiosis, though he does not trouble you with the Latin. He calls it by its simpler name, black lung. The words hang heavy in the air, as final and inescapable as a verdict. He says it plainly. The disease is irreversible. The dust has settled into your lungs, embedded itself in the very tissue, scarring it until it cannot breathe freely. There is no cure, no surgery, no medicine that can scrub it out. Once the dust has claimed you, it remains, slowly suffocating you from within. Your wife gasps softly, her hand flying to her mouth. The children, not fully understanding, huddle closer to her skirts. You sit motionless, staring at the doctor, as though waiting for him to correct himself, to soften the words, to offer some thread of hope. But none comes. Instead, he begins to lecture about the importance of rest. You should avoid exertion, he says, as if you had the luxury of choice. You should spend time in the open air, he suggests, as though there is clean air to be had in a village where every breath carries soot. You should consider light work, he advises, perhaps employment above ground, as though any such position exists for a miner without education, without connections, without strength enough to demand it. His words feel like mockery, though his tone is as bland as a sermon read for the 100th time. He prescribes powders and syrups, the same assortment of bottled promises you have already tried, now in greater quantities, laudanum to quiet the cough, morphine tinctures to ease the pain, camphor lozenges to clear the throat. None of it will cure you, he admits if pressed, but all of it will make the symptoms more bearable. He scribbles on a slip of paper, his handwriting sharp and unreadable, and instructs your wife to purchase them from the apothecary. She nods, though you both know how little money remains. After rent, food, and the ever-growing debts of survival. Still, she will go. She will trade what little she can spare for the comfort of believing she has done something, anything, to help you. The doctor gathers his instruments, snaps his bag closed, and stands to leave. At the door, he pauses long enough to remind you again, to avoid strenuous labour, as though you might simply decline to descend into the pit tomorrow. You almost laugh at the absurdity, but the sound catches in your throat, dissolving into another cough. He nods curtly, tips his hat, and steps back into the street, already gone from your life, his boots unsullied by the dust that fills yours. Your wife lingers at the doorway, watching him vanish into the grey haze, her face pale and drawn. She closes the door slowly, as though shutting out the truth, then turns back to you, her eyes brimming with questions she does not ask. Silence fills the cottage. The children stare, wide-eyed and restless, sensing the weight of what has been said without fully understanding it. Your wife wipes her hands on her apron again and busies herself with the pot on the hearth, though you can see the tremor in her shoulders. You sit motionless, the rag in your lap dark and wet, your chest rising and falling shallowly, every breath a reminder of what the doctor has named. You think of your mother in her damp cottage further along the row, coughing just as you do, waiting for you to visit with a few coins. You think of your children, their lungs still clear, but already catching faint coughs of their own. You think of your wife, her face already lined with worry, though she's still young, forced to watch you crumble as the pit devours you. The doctor has given you nothing new, only the confirmation of what you already feared. The enemy is inside you, and it will not be driven out. You do not speak of it openly. To name it again would be to give it greater power. Instead, you continue as before, eating the bread that tastes faintly of grit, drinking the tea that burns your throat, rising in the pre-dawn gloom to lace your boots. Your wife sets the new bottles of medicine on the shelf, their labels bright and hopeful, their contents thick and cloying. You take them dutifully, swallowing spoonfuls of syrup that numb your throat for a time, powders that ease the pain for an hour or two, lozenges that leave a coolness on your tongue. None of it makes you stronger. None of it grants you air enough to swing the pick with the force you once had. It only muffles the worst of it, long enough for you to pass another day, long enough to keep the foreman from casting you aside. You begin to understand that this is all medicine is meant to do for men like you. Keep you working until you can no longer rise at all. The pit looms larger in your mind now, no longer just the place where you labour, but the place where you will finish. You descend each morning with a new awareness that the air growing thicker, the dust growing heavier, the stone pressing closer is not just environment, but destiny. The cage lowers you toward your grave as much as toward your livelihood. You feel it in your chest when you cough into the dark, in your ribs when you double over, spitting black, in your vision when it blurs from lack of breath. The doctor has told you plainly. There is no cure, no turning back, no road that leads away from the pit, only forward until forward ends. Work grows impossible, though the surrender comes slowly, with reluctance in every step. At first you manage half shifts, dragging yourself underground with the others, insisting you can still fill the tubs, still swing the pick, still breathe well enough to matter. But each attempt ends the same way. Bent double in the dark, your chest seizing, your breath rattling so loudly it drowns out the sound of tools striking stone. The foreman scowls, mutters about wasted space, and tells you to go above, where at least you will not get in the way. You stagger to the surface, your body trembling, your lungs aflame, your pride in tatters. After a few such days, you stop pretending. You remain in the cottage when the whistle sounds, watching from the doorway as the procession of men trudge toward the pit head, lamps bobbing in the grey dawn. You stay behind, your rag already damp from the morning's coughing, your breath too shallow to allow you even the pretense of labour. You sit by the fire now while others work, the chair that once offered rest becoming your prison. The flames blur through watery eyes as your chest heaves, the wheeze louder than the crackle of burning wood. Your hands tremble when you lift your cup, the tea tasting of iron as blood flecks the rim. The children stare at you from the table, their eyes wide, their spoons paused above their bowls. You try to smile, to assure them it is nothing, but another fit seizes you, black phlegm spattering the rag clutched in your hand. They look away then, returning to their meal in silence, though the image lingers in their faces long after. Your wife does not scold, does not sigh, does not ask you to try harder. She simply moves about the cottage with quiet efficiency, stoking the fire, mending clothes, rocking the baby, her eyes hollow with the knowledge that your wages are gone and will not return. Neighbours stop by sometimes, carrying bread or broth when they can spare it, though more often they bring only silence and the weight of their own experience. They nod knowingly when they see you slumped in the chair, your chest rattling, your skin grey beneath the coal stains that never wash away. Every row has its invalid, every family its man too broken to work, and you are simply the next in line. They do not express surprise, only resignation. Some speak of remedies they have heard, herbs steeped in hot water, mustard plasters pressed to the chest, poultices made from goose fat and camphor. You try them all, letting your wife smear your skin with pungent salves, swallowing bitter brews that scorch your tongue and leave you gagging. None make a difference. The cough continues, the black spit flows, and the air remains too heavy to breathe. There are those who suggest prayer, and you try that too. You sit in the chapel with your wife and children, bowing your head while the preacher speaks of suffering as a test, of illness as a burden shared with Christ, of eternal reward awaiting the faithful. The hymns rise around you, voices straining to fill the wooden rafters, but you cannot sing. Each attempt ends in a fit of coughing that rattles the pew, leaving your children staring at the floor in embarrassment. You wonder if God hears you when your chest convulses, if he marks you as one of his tested, or if he simply turns away as the company does, counting souls the way they count tons of coal. When the service ends, the neighbours pat your shoulder with pity and walk on, leaving you no better than when you entered. Faith offers words but not air. At home, remedies continue, each one tried with desperate hope and abandoned in disappointment. Vinegar mixed with honey, hot water poured over onions, lozenges bought at the apothecary with the last of your coins. The syrups return as well, thick and sweet, laced with alcohol and opium, bringing numbness that is almost pleasant but never lasting. You take them at night, the warmth spreading briefly through your chest. Your cough softened enough for your wife to rest. She thanks the medicine, though not you, and you cannot blame her. It is easier to love a silence in the night than a man who shakes the rafters with his lungs. You swallow another spoonful and close your eyes, knowing it will not cure you, but welcoming the lie for the few hours it buys. The children adapt, as children do, their games shifting to accommodate the sound of your cough. They mimic it sometimes, doubling over in play, clutching their ribs and spitting into imaginary rags, then collapsing in laughter. You try to laugh with them, though the sound emerges more like a wheeze, and they quickly turn away, embarrassed. Your eldest avoids your gaze altogether now, sensing more than he understands. He knows that your weakness means fewer coins on the table, less food in the pot, more strain on his mother's hands. He is still small, but already you see in his face the hardness that will come when he joins the line to the pit head. You want to warn him, to beg him not to follow you, but the words dissolve in another fit, leaving only silence. The cottage feels smaller with each passing week, the air inside thick with the sound of your wheezing. The fire smokes more often, or perhaps you simply notice it more now, each curl of ash burning in your lungs. You sit staring into the embers, your body too weak to move, your breath too shallow to allow anything but stillness. Your wife works tirelessly around you, scrubbing, patching, cooking, carrying the weight you once bore. You watch her hands grow raw from the laundry she takes in from neighbours. Her back stoop as she bends over endless mending, her face tighten with fatigue. She never reproaches you, but the silence between you grows heavier each night. You once returned home with wages, however meagre, however docked. Now you return nothing but the sound of your cough echoing in the rafters. Sometimes you manage to step outside, leaning on the door frame for support, gulping the air as though it might prove cleaner than what lies within. It never does. The soot hangs in the village just as heavily as in the seam, carried on every breeze, settling on every surface. Children chase each other through it, their laughter sharp against the wheeze that fills your chest, but you cannot join them. You cough into your rag, spit black into the mud, and return to the chair by the fire, defeated. The world beyond the pit and the cottage shrinks until it is little more than smoke, dust, and silence. Your mother visits when she can, though her own body is bent and weary now. She sits beside you, her breath shallow, her cough no less insistent than yours. The two of you speak little, your conversations broken by the rhythm of your lungs. She tells you not to worry, that she managed before and will manage again, that your wife and children are strong enough to endure. Her words are meant as comfort, but you hear the resignation in them, the knowledge that the pit has stolen too many already and will steal more still. When she leaves, walking slowly back to her damp cottage further along the row, you watch her stooped figure fade into the smoke and wonder which of you the mine will claim first. And through it all, the whistle of the pit continues to sound each morning, shrill and unrelenting, summoning the men to another day of labour. You lie awake in the dim light, listening to it echo across the valley. Relief washes over you at first because you're not among them, not crawling into the dark with lungs that cannot bear it. Yet the relief curdles into shame just as quickly, because you know that you're failing, that your wife shoulders the burden alone, that your children eat less because you can no longer provide. You sit in the chair, coughing into your rag, hearing the whistle fade into silence as the men descend, and you feel both grateful and condemned. You are spared the pit, but not its cost. Without steady wages, the family sinks further, though you all try to pretend at first that nothing has changed. For a few weeks, your wife manages to stretch the coins you saved, buying less bread, watering the broth, mending clothes that ought to have been replaced long ago. But the cupboard empties quickly when nothing new is added, and soon the meals grow thinner still. The children complain of hunger in their sleep, turning restlessly on the straw mattress, murmuring about food they cannot have. Your wife ignores her own stomach to divide the bread more evenly, slipping her share to the youngest when she thinks no one is looking. You notice, of course, though you say nothing. Your silence is its own form of guilt. Each meal is now a reminder of your absence from the pit, of the wages that no longer fall onto the table with the dull clink of survival. Debt grows as relentlessly as the cough. The company store still opens its doors, though the tally of what you owe lengthens with each week. Lamp oil, candles, flour, soap, all written neatly into the ledger, their prices marked higher than any honest market would ask. The clerk smiles thinly as he adds the numbers, his pen scratching out a record of your decline more accurate than any doctor's notes. He does not refuse you, because it is not in the company's interest to refuse. Debt ties you as firmly as wages ever did, ensuring that even if you never swing a pick again, you will remain chained to the pit in one way or another. You sign with a trembling hand, feeling each stroke of the pen as though it carved into your lungs. The debt grows heavier than coal, pressing upon you even in the stillness of the night. Your wife takes in washing from neighbours to earn a few pennies, her hands raw and red from scrubbing at basins until the water turns black with other people's dirt. She works from dawn until long after the children have fallen asleep, bending over the tubs, hanging damp garments across ropes that sag beneath the weight. The smell of lye fills the cottage, stinging your throat, though you say nothing. She does not complain either, but the slump of her shoulders tells you more than words ever could. Sometimes she mends clothing for others, her needle flashing in the lamplight, her eyes squinting until they water. She is younger than her face now suggests, her features worn not by years but by unending strain. You watch her from your chair, coughing into your rag, and feel yourself diminish with every stitch she sews. The children begin to pick up scraps of work as well. Your eldest runs errands for neighbours, carrying parcels and fetching water, his legs thin but quick. The younger ones scour the slag heaps for bits of coal missed by the carts, their small hands blackened, their pockets filled with fragments that barely keep the hearth alive for an extra hour. They return home triumphant with their meagre finds, expecting praise, and you smile as best you can, though the smile feels broken at the edges. Their pride is real, but so is your shame. You should be the one filling the hearth, the one placing coins into your wife's hand, the one who feeds them with your strength. Instead, you sit wheezing in the corner, watching your children shoulder the burden that should be yours. The cough has stolen not only your breath, but your role, leaving you little more than an invalid in your own home. Neighbours continue to nod knowingly, though their sympathy has grown more distant. At first they stopped by with loaves, with broths, with whispered encouragements. But as the weeks turned into months, they came less often. Every family has its invalid, and they cannot afford to carry yours as well. When they pass you in the lane, they still nod, but their eyes flick away quickly, their steps hurrying. Pity is a luxury no one here can spare for long. In truth, you cannot blame them. You would have done the same when you were still strong, sparing no more than a glance for the man slumped by his hearth, his cough drowning out the crackle of the fire. Now you are that man, and you see how quickly the village forgets its broken limbs. You feel yourself a burden more with each passing day. Your wife does not say it, but you see it in her movements. The way she does not meet your eyes when she returns from a long day bent over basins. The way she sighs softly when you cough through the night. The way her hands tremble when she counts the coins and finds them lacking. The children too, though they love you, have grown quieter around you, their laughter muffled, their play subdued in the presence of your wheezing. You imagine they remember the man who once lifted them onto his shoulders, who swung them about the yard, who filled the cottage with stories after supper. That man is gone, replaced by a shadow hunched in a chair, clutching a rag that drips with black. They do not say it, but you see the truth in their eyes. You are no longer father, provider, protector, but an echo of what the pit has taken. The system that drained your lungs now drains your pride, leaving you hollowed out on both sides. The company still profits, its ledgers swelling with the record shipments of coal that pour from the earth, fueling lamps and trains and factories you will never see. Progress marches on, they say, though in your cottage progress looks like thin broth, patched clothing, and children with hollow cheeks. You understand now, more clearly than ever, that the pit was never meant to sustain you. It was meant to consume you, to grind your body into dust as thoroughly as it grinds the coal beneath the earth. The foreman's tally board did not record men, only output. The company's books did not count lives, only profits. And now, as your body fails, even your absence proves profitable. Another man will step into your place. Another boy will take up the pick. Another family will slide slowly into debt. The system wastes nothing but the men themselves. At night, when the day's efforts have drained your wife and children into silence, you lie awake in the dark, listening to the cottage breathe. The fire has burned low, the air heavy with smoke and damp. The children huddled together on the straw, their chests rising and falling with thin, uneven rhythm. Your wife sleeps beside you, her face turned away, her breath shallow from exhaustion. You cough into the rag again, the sound muffled but still loud enough to make the baby stir in its cradle. You press the cloth harder to your lips, ashamed not only of the noise but of the black stain that blooms across the fabric. The taste of iron lingers on your tongue, the ache deep in your ribs. You stare into the darkness and listen to the faint, fragile sound of your children breathing, their small lungs still free enough to draw air where yours cannot. Relief and sorrow mingle in the sound. You are grateful they breathe at all, but each thin sigh reminds you of the inheritance you have given them. A world of dust, hunger, and the pit. Your world narrows to the chair by the fire and the bedroom upstairs. Where once you measured your life by shifts in the pit and coins on the table, you now measure it by how far you can move before your chest seizes and the rag in your hand grows damp again. The cottage becomes both your refuge and your prison, its four walls closing in until even the walk from hearth to bed feels like crossing a mountain. You sink into the chair each morning as your wife stirs the fire, the sound of the poker clanging against the grate drowned by the rasping in your chest. Every breath is a negotiation, shallow and forced, dragging against lungs that refuse to expand. The wheeze fills the silence so completely that conversation becomes a kind of futility. Your children speak in whispers, their voices subdued, as though raising them might compete with the noise of your breath. You try to answer, to smile, to reassure them, but the words break apart under the weight of coughing, leaving only gasps that shake your frame. The taste of coal dust never leaves you. It clings to your tongue as stubbornly as it clings to your skin, a bitterness that seeps into every mouthful, no matter what your wife sets before you. Bread tastes of soot, broth of iron, even tea carries a faint grit that grinds between your teeth. You chew slowly, forcing each swallow past the tightness in your throat, though the act of eating brings no satisfaction anymore. Your stomach knots after a few bites, your appetite shriveled along with the rest of your body. Your clothes hang loose from your shoulders, your skin stretched taut across bones that jut like broken timbers. Where once you were broad, your arms corded with muscle, your back thick with strength, now you are gaunt, your chest sunken, your body wasted by an enemy you cannot fight. The pit stripped you of your breath first, then your strength, and now it strips you of your very shape, leaving only a hollowed figure slumped in a chair. Even the smallest movements become battles. To rise from the chair and cross the room takes minutes, your hand braced on the table, your knees trembling, your lungs seizing before you reach the other side. The stairs are worse, their narrow steps looming like cliffs. You climb them slowly, one hand gripping the rail, the other clutching the rag that never leaves your side. Each step forces a pause, each pause filled with coughing that shakes the walls. By the time you reach the top, your vision swims, black flecks crowding the corners of your eyes, your chest clamped tight. You collapse onto the bed, gasping, your wife hovering at your side, pressing a cool cloth to your forehead while the children watch from the doorway. You lie there until your breath steadies, though it never steadies fully anymore, only enough to convince her that you will not die this time. The sound of your wheeze follows you everywhere. It drowns the crackle of the fire, the murmur of your wife's prayers, the laughter of your children at play. Even silence cannot escape it. It fills the cottage until it feels like another presence in the room, louder than any words, more constant than any hymn. At night, when the cottage grows still, the rasping echoes in your own ears, so loud it seems impossible that the others sleep through it. You lie awake listening to yourself. The steady, ragged sound of a body unravelling. It feels unnatural, obscene even, that life should sound so much like death rehearsing its part. You press the rag to your lips to muffle it, but the sound does not cease, only grows wetter, thicker, until it drowns your thoughts entirely. Visitors come less often now. Neighbours who once stopped to nod knowingly pass by your door without knocking, unwilling to hear the sound of your decline, unwilling to sit in a room where every conversation must compete with your lungs. Even your mother's visits grow rarer. Her own cough has worsened, her steps slowed by age and illness. When she does come, the two of you sit together by the fire, speaking little, your conversations broken by fits of coughing that answer each other like signals. She tells you she is proud of you, though you hear the sadness behind her words, the grief of a woman watching her son fade in the same way her husband did. When she leaves, your wife closes the door softly behind her, her lips pressed thin, her silence as heavy as the coal dust that coats every surface. Your wife bears the weight without complaint, though you see it in her eyes when she thinks you're not looking. She works until her hands are raw, washing, mending, cooking, coaxing what little food she can from scraps and debts. At night she sinks into bed beside you, her body trembling with exhaustion, her face turned away as if she cannot bear to watch you struggle for each breath. You do not blame her. Your children avoid the chair now, their games moved outside or into corners, their laughter subdued when it drifts back through the doorway. They are young, but they know enough to be frightened by the sound of your breath, by the sight of your gaunt frame, hunched in the firelight. They watch you as though waiting for something, for the day when the coughing finally does not stop. You want to tell them it will be all right, but the words dissolve in your chest before they ever reach your lips. The medicines clutter the shelf above the hearth, their bright labels faded, their contents dwindling. Syrups, powders, lozenges, all promising relief, but delivering only moments of quiet. You swallow them dutifully, your wife pressing them into your hands with a determined look, as though each spoonful might yet turn the tide. The opium-laced syrups numb your throat. The alcohol warms your chest. The lozenges cool your tongue, but nothing reaches the blackness inside your lungs. At best, they dull the edge for an hour, enough to let you rest, enough to give her hope. You play along, though you know they are nothing but a masquerade, a way of pretending you're still a man rather than a body unravelling in slow motion. The pit has already claimed you. The medicines merely disguise it. Sometimes you dream of the mine, though you have not descended in months. You dream of crawling through the seams, your lamp sputtering, your pick in hand, the dust swirling so thick you cannot see. You cough until your chest bursts, until your body collapses, until the darkness swallows you whole. You wake drenched in sweat, gasping, clutching at your wife's arm, certain for a moment that you're still underground. She murmurs soothingly, pressing the rag to your lips, wiping the black spit from your chin, telling you to rest. But you cannot rest. Even in sleep, the dust follows you, filling your lungs, filling your dreams, filling every corner of your shrinking world. The chair becomes your throne of suffering. You sit there each day, staring into the fire, the rag clutched in your hand, your chest rattling with every breath. The world beyond the cottage shrinks until it no longer exists. The pit is a memory, the pub a place you hear of only from others. The fields beyond the village, an unreachable distance. Your life is measured in the space between hearth and bed, in the moments between coughs, in the shallow gasps that pass for breathing. You feel yourself wither, your body shrinking, your presence fading, until you're little more than a sound. The wheeze, the cough, the rasp of a man dissolving. One evening, after a day spent entirely in the chair, you decide to climb the stairs. Your wife is upstairs with the children, settling them into their narrow bed, and you wish to join them, to see their faces as they drift into sleep. You rise slowly, bracing yourself against the table, your knees trembling, your chest already seizing with effort. The first step leaves you breathless, the second shaking, the third nearly unbearable. You grip the rail, dragging yourself upward, coughing so violently you see black spots swimming before your eyes. Halfway up, your strength fails entirely. Your legs buckle, your chest contracts, and you collapse against the steps, gasping for air that will not come. Your rag falls from your hand, dark with spit, tumbling onto the floor below. You claw at the rail, your vision narrowing, your breath caught forever halfway between inhale and exhale, as though the world itself has locked the air away from you. You're bedridden now, the stairs no longer something you attempt, the chair by the fire abandoned because the journey between it and the bed has become impossible. You lie on the thin mattress upstairs, the ceiling beams looming above, your chest rising and falling shallowly beneath the blanket. Nights stretch into endless vigils of coughing, your body convulsing until you're slick with sweat, your throat raw, your ribs aching as though each one has been cracked. The rag never leaves your hand, already dark before the night begins, already stiff before the morning light slips weakly through the small window. You do not sleep so much as drift in and out of consciousness, carried between fits of breathlessness and the shallow relief that follows. Each dawn comes not with rest but with exhaustion deeper than the day before. Your wife moves silently around you, tending to the children, tending to the house, tending to you when she can, though she no longer tries to hide her fatigue. Her eyes are sunken, her hair dulled, her hands cracked from washing and scrubbing, but she continues because she must. She lifts the rag from your lips when you're too weak to hold it, wipes your face with a cloth, smooths the blanket across your chest. She offers you the syrups and powders that still clutter the shelf, though you both know they are nothing more than delay. You take them out of habit rather than hope, the thick sweetness coating your tongue, the burn of alcohol warming your throat, the opium haze softening your awareness for a brief while. When it fades, the cough remains, heavier than before, as though mocking the charade. She does not scold you for the wasted coins. She does not speak of the future. The silence between you is heavier than any words could be. The children keep their distance now, their games muted, their laughter subdued. They peek around the doorway sometimes, staring at you with wide, uncertain eyes, whispering questions your wife does not answer. They know enough to be afraid of the sound of your breath, the ragged rasp that fills the cottage even when you're silent. At night, when you cough until you choke, they bury their heads under the blankets, clutching each other until the fit subsides. In the mornings, they move quickly past your bed, on their way to the door, rushing out into the street, where the air, though still heavy with soot, feels cleaner than the suffocating silence inside. You do not call to them, do not ask them to stay, because you cannot bear to drag them into the orbit of your suffering. Better that they remember the man who carried them, however briefly, than the one who lies motionless beneath a blanket, hacking his life away. Death comes slowly, so slowly that you almost convince yourself it will not come at all. There is no sudden collapse, no explosion, no roof fall burying you in an instant. Instead, it inches closer day by day. As each breath grows shallower, each cough emptier, each hour longer. You feel it in the weight pressing on your chest, in the dizziness that comes when you try to sit up, in the weakness that leaves you trembling even after sipping water. It is not a battle, not something you can fight. It is a slow surrender, the body relinquishing itself piece by piece, until there is little left but breath, and the waiting for it to end. There is no drama in it, no spectacle, no moment of clarity, only silence creeping closer, each cough less vigorous than the last, each breath shorter than the one before. You think of the others who have gone this way, the men whose names are already fading from memory. You remember neighbours who once sat at the pub, their laughter echoing over pints of beer, now spoken of only in passing, their deaths marked by a brief pause in conversation before the tally of coal resumes. You recall the boys who grew into men beside you, in the seams, their bodies strong, their lungs already scarred, vanishing one by one into the same silence that now surrounds you. None of them were remembered beyond the street they lived on, the debts they left behind, the cough that lingered in their cottages. You realise you will be no different. The pit does not keep records of its dead, only of its tonnage. Your life will not be marked in history, only in the faint stains on your rag, the black dust in your lungs, the hollow left in your bed. Your mother coughs in her own cottage further down the row, her body as frail as yours, her steps slower with each passing week. You imagine her lying much as you do now, staring at her ceiling, waiting for the same silence to claim her. You wonder if she hears you at night, your fits echoing down the lane, mingling with her own, a duet of decline. You do not visit, cannot visit, but you know she understands. She has watched this path before. She watched your father walk it. She watched neighbours vanish along it, and she knew from the start that you would too. The knowledge offers no comfort, only the bleak assurance that you're part of a pattern so common it barely deserves notice. The village goes on around you, indifferent. Each morning the whistle of the pit sounds shrill across the valley, summoning the men to their shifts. You hear it from your bed, the sound cutting through your fitful sleep, and you feel both relief and bitterness. Relief that you no longer have to drag yourself into the shaft, bitterness that the world moves on without you, that the pit does not pause even as it buries you. Through the window you see the procession of lamps bobbing in the dawn, the line of men trudging forward, their faces black, their bodies bent. You know they too carry the dust inside them, that they too will one day collapse in their chairs, in their beds, coughing into rags. But for now they march, and you remain behind, forgotten even before you're gone. As the days grow fewer, you speak less. Your breath is too shallow to form words, your chest too tight to allow speech. Your wife no longer expects conversation. She sits by the bed mending clothes, her needle flashing in the dim light, her silence unbroken except for the sound of your wheeze. She looks at you sometimes, her eyes tired, her expression unreadable. You want to tell her you're sorry, that you never meant to leave her with nothing but debts and children, and a cottage full of soot. You want to thank her for the years she bore beside you, for the patience, for the labour, for the nights she endured your coughing. But the words never come. They remain locked in your chest, smothered beneath the dust, unspoken until they dissolve into silence. The end is quiet, undramatic, almost unnoticeable. One night the coughing is weaker than before. The fits less violent. Your body too frail to convulse as it once did. Your wife wipes your face with a damp cloth, presses the rag to your lips, and tells you to rest. You close your eyes, your breath rattling shallowly, each one shorter than the last. The children sleep nearby, their small bodies huddled together, their breathing thin but steady. You listen to it faintly, wishing you could hold on to the sound, wishing you could believe they will escape what you have given them. Your chest rises, falls, rises again, then falters. The silence that has crept closer each day finally arrives, filling the cottage, swallowing the rasp, leaving only stillness. Your cough ends. Your body is buried quickly, cheaply, without ceremony. A coffin knocked together from rough boards, lowered into a shallow grave in the corner of the churchyard. A handful of neighbours gathered in weary silence. Your wife stands with the children, her face pale, her eyes fixed on the ground, her thoughts already turning to the debts that remain, the meals that must still be found, the life that goes on without you. There is no monument, no stone, no record beyond the parish book. The earth is shovelled back, the mound flattened, the grave indistinguishable from a dozen others. The cough that once filled your cottage is gone, replaced by another man's elsewhere, and already the village forgets. The next morning the pit whistle sounds again, shrill and unrelenting, summoning the men to work. The line forms as it always does, lamps bobbing in the dawn, boots dragging through the mud. The pit does not pause, does not mourn, does not notice. You are gone, and the seam is still there to be worked. And that brings us to the end of tonight's slow descent into the life of a Victorian coal miner.